If only our e-commerce platforms had a better way to recognize fraudulent members without impacting good ones.
If only we could augment our credit data with added insights so I can approve more loans.
If only we knew enough to optimize offers for both an individual and their household.
We've all had those if-only moments. Times we know there's a better way to drive business, if only we had the tools. Truth is, there is only one partner that does all that and more, only Equifax. The only choice for creating the richest, most recent, and most robust portrait of a member. The only way to get to accurate, in-the-moment decisions with a cloud-native experience that gets you to revenue faster. Only Equifax has the ability to help you create certainty in real time, over time, at any point in your member's life cycle. We build the most holistic portrait of your members by combining our authoritative data with your unmatched member knowledge. Working together, we can fuel decisions that create unique opportunities that can both improve your members' experience and drive smarter revenue at the same time. Only Equifax is helping a large retailer leverage proprietary, personal identifiable information data to make it easier for their shoppers to get approved in-store in real time, while reducing fraud and overhead. And only Equifax is employing AI and machine learning to help a major credit card provider distinguish between legitimate and potentially fraudulent applications, while increasing approvals without raising their delinquency rate. Exactly what we create for the companies we work with is different in each case. Every business is singular, and every customer interaction is a highly personalized, one-to-one proposition. But in each instance, our only goal is simple: creating differentiated data-driven solutions that are as personal as they are profitable. For every one of your if-only moments, there's only Equifax.
Welcome back. Welcome back, everybody. What a great kickoff session. I don't know if what everybody else thought, but I had chills going on. We were off to a fabulous start with a tremendous panel. And I just want to say I'm so glad that everyone's coming back to this. The rest of the afternoon content is just going to be as exciting and as fabulous. I have the great privilege to introduce this next session, which is entitled Designing Technology for Financial Inclusion. And I'm first up going to introduce our fabulous moderator, Marla Blow. Marla is the president of the Skoll Foundation, where she leads Skoll's program work, grants, investments, and financial management, including operations, endowment, and portfolio partnerships. Many of you may know Marla because previously she was the North America lead at the MasterCard Center for Inclusive Growth. And before that, she was founder and CEO of FS Card, which was a credit card fintech venture. So she'll be our moderator today with our fabulous panel that includes speakers such as Kris VanBeek, the CEO of US Alliance Financial, Rachel Schneider, the CEO of Canary, and Angelo Fanaras, Vice President and Chief Information Officer of Public Service Credit Union, CIO of Public Service Credit Union. Welcome, Marla, and welcome to the panelists. I am going to kick it over to you, Marla, to do some framing remarks on this panel, and look forward to hearing what everybody has to say. Thank you.
Fantastic. Thank you so much, Kathy, and thank you all for being here, and welcome and say hello first and foremost to our panelists who've joined us here today. And really take a moment here to just talk a little bit about technology and fintech and the ways that digital puts us in a position to drive change and be inclusive in financial services. And one of the things that I find is really promising about fintech and about the technology space and the capabilities that technology really democratizes is the fact that there is now opportunity to run at scale, or shouldn't even say at scale, but efficiently, solutions for relatively small markets in some cases, right? And that has always been one of the challenges in financial services, is that it can actually be quite expensive to make a solution that is viable immediately at scale and that is robust and accessible. And so technology allows for testing a small solution in a niche population, right? iPhone users in a specific demographic category, for example, and do that in an efficient form and be able to build a sustainable business there and demonstrate the viability of a product or service. It allows for possibility that there will be entrepreneurs and innovators and leaders in this sector that come from and integrate information about the populations that they serve from the perspective of somebody that is deeply steeped in that community, whether that's in and of that community, you've spent significant time with that community, have for one reason or another had the opportunity to observe, and can come up with products that reflect the creativity that might be inherent in a population. And an example of that, right, I would say, the Mission Asset Fund and the work that Jose Quinones has been leading in that arena for quite a long time, where he brought a digital form of a solution that has long been in use by a community to solve its own need for ability to create capital and amass capital, and then pass that around and share that within a unit. And now turn that into a digital opportunity that can be adopted and applied by the banking sector and made available to much broader sets of customers. Those are illustrations of the ways that fintech can really create meaningful opportunity and demonstration of viability, while also not necessarily requiring massive scale in the immediate term or right out of the gate. The processing power, the opportunity to practice, to harness and leverage massive amounts of data, which even 15 years ago would have required millions and millions and millions of dollars and thousands of people and computing power that would have required massive investment, can now be run by 2 or 3 people on a laptop and or with a few laptops. And the insight generation and the opportunities that presents are also unprecedented. Also, we'll add to that, what that also requires is a particular focus on setting up win-win situations with the populations they're trying to serve. So those are some of the ways that I would characterize the opportunity in this arena in terms of being able to frame out what the opportunity looks like, what technology can enable, and how some of these solutions have the possibilities of coming to market. But with that as the frame, let me turn to our panel here and jump into the conversation. And so, Kris, maybe we start with you. Let's talk a bit about what you're seeing in the market and how you are looking at accelerating credit union growth and improving the quality of the member experience, seeing those as not necessarily mutually exclusive, but in fact, looking at the ways that technology can play a big role. And Angelo, same question for you, but Kris, let's start with you. How has technology allowed your credit union to grow and offer member experiences?
Well, I would like to say, maybe to start out with US Alliance, maybe we have a little bit of an advantage here being kind of IBM's heritage. So being the credit union for IBM headquarters is kind of in the DNA, and that starts with the board and it's throughout the membership base. And while US Alliance has grown and diversified and moved into so many different diverse markets throughout the country, the idea of looking at fintechs and seeing how they're able to mimic a lot of the things in the credit union industry playbook today meaning, emulate some of the sense of community, much as you've described certain niches, and the idea of being able to serve it incredibly well with a laser sharp focus, meaning they don't try and serve everything. They try and find a very specific product, let's say in this case of US Alliance, a checking account, and just refine that process to reduce friction, to do it very quickly, and to do it with all kinds of little shiny pennies, these little things that kind of catch your eye that by themselves, may not be huge, but if you take a whole bunch of them and you kind of walk away and go, wow, that was just a great experience. And I think technology is the great enabler in so many different ways. And the idea that, we can be a full service cooperative credit union and keep all of our traditional elements, yet step forward in certain platforms, technology platforms, and deliver, compete, and in many ways exceed some of the things that are going on in the for-profit side and the fintech. So I'm the ultimate fan. I'm a CIO background, so let a CIO become a CEO, and I don't think you're going to find a bigger advocate for technology. But I just think there's an immense amount of opportunity here.
Okay, got it. Well, thank you for that. And Kris, was there material? I'm wondering if you had a slide that you wanted to share, and let's go ahead and before Angelo jumps in, and thank you, Rachel, for joining us here as well. We'll look forward to working you into the conversation. But why don't you go ahead and share what you have prepared?
Sure. So, without going into too much, history, US Alliance started an initiative of a number of it was probably a year and a half, 2 years back now, pre-COVID, and was focusing on the idea of the neobank space. If folks are familiar with them, there's literally dozens of them out there. But today, probably Chime might be the most famous. And as I was saying, I think the idea that Chime emulated chapters out of what credit unions do today, and the idea of Dora, which US Alliance and a number of other partners are part of, is a first. Not only a first for the credit union industry, but we believe it's the first for the financial services industry, and that is a neobank that is cooperative. It's a neobank that is part of the credit union movement, and also bigger than any one credit union. That's a collaborative of credit unions. The name Dora came really through the reflection and a tribute to Dora Maxwell, who, if you're familiar with the industry, worked throughout the Northeast to establish literally hundreds of credit unions to serve underserved in a wide variety of different markets and communities. And from an actual product perspective, Dora is really at its most base level a checking account, but with all of those, as I described, shiny pennies that make the member experience really refined. If we go to the next slide for a moment, the idea would be to have kind of a first-class product in every technology way, better or as good or better than anything that's out there today, such as a Chime, but it eliminates a lot of the barriers to entry. The idea that, if there may have been a financial gap, a loss, or fees in the past, that the idea that we could overlook that and look for a go-forward basis. And I think at the most basic level, we've looked at Dora to be a delivery platform, a financial cooperative delivery platform, and entry into the industry as a whole. If you think about it at its most basic level, and not to pick on them because I think they do a terrific job, but these neobanks are for-profit. And then not only that, behind them, they have for-profit banks doing the heavy lifting behind the scenes. And I think the big difference here with Dora is it's, again, from beginning to end cooperative, with credit unions doing the heavy lifting behind the scenes. So, the idea that we're doing this in a true, pure way to reach all these different markets. I'm also very proud that Dora was built on kind of the banking on national standards for an account. And so the idea that right out of the box, it just has that best design, what's best for these future members. To just touch on the product on the next slide real quick, you might see or hear some of these things out in the industry today, early direct deposit. These are things that are built into US Alliance today, but we see some of the fintechs following a similar recipe. Access to 30,000 plus ATMs with no fees, no minimum balance requirements, no maintenance fees. Really, really innovative experience where the account is, opened up in minutes, or sub 2 minutes in many cases. Mobile checking, mobile deposit, bill payer, all these things that are just really kind of expectations with some of the best fintechs that are out there today. But I think the thing that I'm most proud of as it relates to Dora is it was built as a multilingual platform right out of the box. And again, very, very frictionless. So if your iPhone or your Android phone is communicating with you in Spanish today, and you download the Dora app, it is downloaded in Spanish. It is downloaded in English if it's set to English. And if you'd like to transfer back and forth, you can do that seamlessly. And I can speak for US Alliance. We've added a lot of multilingual capabilities over the years, but I would describe it as almost like patchwork, where we've added something, and maybe there's a gap that there's, maybe it's a disclosure, maybe it's a form, maybe it's a statement, and it just wasn't completely perfect. And in Dora, building this end-to-end multilingual platform from the bottom and all the way to the top, I think is really a big enhancement to the experience. On the next slide, just I really want to give a shout out to Inclusiv. Inclusiv has been a great partner advisor through this process from day one. Before Dora was even named Dora, it had some different iterations of it. And we've talked to a number of other credit unions throughout the industry over the last year and a half or so. And there just seemed to be an amazing amount of interest, a desire to be involved. So I have no doubt in the future we'll see additional credit union partners. But the other partners that you see up here, Affinity Plus, Federal Credit Union, Digital Federal Credit Union or DCU, and of course, Service Credit Union, all stepped right up once they saw Dora and said, hey, we want in, we want to be part of this industry changing initiative. So it's thrilling to be part of this. And I guess I'll close with this, that we've been in beta for a number of months, had some really positive experiences. And I'd really like to, officially use the Inclusiv conference as the starting point of being live in production. I couldn't think of a better way to kind of make that statement and say, hey, we're live. I've talked to the other credit unions and they all feel very comfortable with it and very excited to use this as a starting point. And I look forward in the years to come to provide periodic updates of how this is transforming our industry. So thank you.
Thank you, Kris. And that is incredibly exciting. Bravo on being able to make that announcement and share that here. And I just want to point out that the aggregation and the way you've brought together a set of services in this digital arena is reflective of the journey on fintech over the course of the last decade or so, including remote deposit, deposit capture, and a number of the other pieces that you've mentioned, which really started off as niche products and with people that were willing to test out technology, right, and take a risk. With populations that were in places where they couldn't really get to a bank. Now those have become mainstream and you're bundling them here in a way that is incredibly powerful. So fantastic to see. Thank you for that. Let's go to you, Angelo, and please do take a moment to introduce yourself and give some opening remarks and then talk a bit about how you're using technology in your work.
Well, thank you, Marla. And thanks to Inclusiv for the invitation. I was really surprised and flattered at the same time to be included. Hi, my name is Angelo Fanaras, and for the past 18 years, I'm the CIO for Public Service Credit Union. A PSCU, Public Service Credit Union, is primarily field of membership. It used to be the City of Detroit and Wayne County employees. And we went from 3 branches to 14 today, servicing the whole state. Still a smaller credit union, definitely with high aspirations. My previous experience was with Michigan National Bank, now Bank of America. Big institution where the technology projects were on a bigger scale. Bigger but difficult to move and full of red tape. It was refreshing coming to public service and finding out how smaller institutions approach technology. They see something they like and they go after it. My task at beginning with public service was to modernize, streamline, and secure our infrastructure, and then look for ways that technology translated to how we can better service our members. 18 years ago, if you guys remember, Q Online was a norm. We were just starting building a website, and telephone was the major digital channel. Today, digital member experience using different channels is the center of attention, and quite frankly, necessary. Over the last 18 months, it has become evident that the pandemic has caused major changes in how members perceive and interact with their money, their digital banking tools. We as a leadership team question, at the time, how long those changes will last and whether those financial behaviors will outlive the pandemic or even grow stronger for that point. In our organization, we noticed a steady increase in digital channel usage all through the pandemic. You're going to go to the next slide, please, for me. So one of our strategic goals for the next couple of years was improving our existing technology. The pandemic brought those goals in focus. It is now, no later. We realized that we had to change how we do business. So even though heavy on brick and mortar, we recognized that investing in technology was required. So we approached that process by designing a model containing 3 different buckets. One of them was the 24/7, allowing members to have access to the tools and money anytime and whenever they wanted to. Secondly was member education. Do the members have the tools to improve their financial health and without barriers? And thirdly, brand and tone consistency. We wanted all our digital offerings to have the same feel, so people won't get lost, won't get confused, and understand exactly what everything was presented to them. So in the center of our vision was redesigning and repurpose our call center. We wanted to give them the tools and resources that they're not just a resolution department, but truly a one-stop shop for everything digital that a member might use. So with that in mind, we came up with some vendors and some projects that we wanted to build for our institution. Next slide, please. So we started with an online and mobile banking, and we call it banking on steroids. The project was to design a mobile and online banking application that will better support members, onboarding, member engagement, giving them a single access to manage their cards, create budgets for them, show them the cash flow, tracking and credit score monitoring. And we wanted an app that had all the modules included. We don't want them to send them somewhere else, even through single sign-on. We want them to stay on the same app. Then we built a personal finance manager, and put it into online banking as well. That provides customers, or members with seamless experience for viewing all their data in a single platform. It gives them a high-level view of where they spend their money, creates budgets for them, and even shows them debt management, where they can save some money by allocating money somewhere else. It lets them see the whole financial picture 360 degrees. One that we're very excited about is the video banking. The video banking is adding a human aspect to our digital delivery, allowing agents to interact with members using video, chat, and co-browsing. Members now can speak with agents as if they're in the branch and get help with applications, as well as being shown in real time how to navigate our digital channels. Definitely got positive and valuable feedback from some of our older members that they're not very technology savvy, so our agents were able to help them and show them watching the same screen, where they need to go and what they need to click before they get where they wanted to. And lastly, virtual agents, which serves as an always available online customer service representative. It leads an intelligent conversation with members, responds to their questions, and performs transactions unattended 24/7. After we analyzed our calls, we ended up finding out that 80% of our calls that come into the call center were repetitive and could be answered easy by going to online banking or our website. So we figure a digital agent should be able to take those calls. This reduces the time our call center agents must spend on repetitive calls, and allows them to channel their focus on more quality relationship building and sales. This is some heavy projects that we undertook the last year, and we're looking forward to have everything completed. We expect to give us a leg up on the competition.
Thank you so much, Angelo. Really appreciate that. And I think that virtual agents idea that you were describing at the end there is another really compelling and interesting opportunity, especially around natural language processing and all the ways that the intelligence gets smarter and smarter over time, and can in some ways almost anticipate the kinds of questions that customers will ask based on repetitive patterns. It's incredibly exciting. So thank you. Really, really phenomenal. Let's shift to Rachel Schneider from Canary, and I should offer up a bit of a disclaimer here as we shift into talking about Canary and Rachel's work. I am completely unbiased around Canary, but I have also showed my hand by making a small investment in Canary directly myself as a small angel investor. So wanted to make sure that folks know here that I have a stake here, but I will ultimately just let Rachel tell her own story. So Rachel, why don't you introduce yourself and talk a bit about how you are leveraging technology at Canary. We'll go from there.
Thanks so much. And thanks, Marla. I'm glad you made that disclosure. And of course, I couldn't be more delighted to have your support in all ways. And I feel like, Canary, as any good venture would say this, we would not be able to make any progress if we didn't have a group of people behind us and helping us along the way. So what Canary is really comes from this idea. And I'm sorry, I'm noticing that I have a lot of background noise. Are you all hearing that? Okay, I need 1 second. I'm so sorry.
Not a problem, and it's not as noticeable, but we'll give Rachel 1 second to address that issue and talk a bit about what she's building with Canary in the world of emergency relief funds and access, and enabling employees through their organizations to meet their needs in a crisis. The focus is on developing operating technology so that there is ready digital access in times of need. So Rachel, I did a little bit of description of Canary while you stepped away. The background noise wasn't overwhelmingly noticeable, but please go ahead.
Okay, thank you so much, everyone. This is the challenge of a remote conference. And I just realized all of a sudden, like, it hadn't been bad while everyone else was talking. And then as soon as I started talking, of course, that's when it, the fact that I live in Manhattan became really obvious. So in any case, thank you for giving that overview. This really comes from the intuition, which I think you all know, like the knowledge that there are moments in people's lives when a small amount of money makes a big difference. So if you go to the next slide, we really frame this around emergencies. And I think this is going to be intuitive to anyone who works in a credit union, or something you see every day, right? That members have challenges in their lives, because all people have challenges in their lives. And if you live your financial life on the edge in any way, right? If you don't have a significant savings cushion on your own, and you earn just enough to cover the cost of living, but not so much more, then when those emergencies come up, they can really cause substantial harm. And a big part of what we are all doing as we innovate around financial products is helping people to have access to better tools to manage those ups and downs, right? Saving, borrowing, they're tools to manage the ups and downs in your financial life. Another tool that has always been a part of the human experience is mutual aid, right? Is communities coming together to help each other. And if you move to the next slide, that's really what Canary is about, right? So you saw this just in huge ways during the pandemic, that as soon as there was just an outpouring of financial support, whether it was people giving to GoFundMe or people giving, randomly through Venmo, like, right? You heard these incredible stories of communities coming together to support each other, but also of individuals stepping in to be generous. And Canary is really seeking to create a technology-enabled way to make that practice ubiquitous, right? To make it really easy. Like, how do we formalize something and put technology around it that is just an informal and consistent part of the human experience? And so we're starting working mostly with employers, and we've been lucky to work with a handful of employers in the financial services industry, including a credit union or two, who are putting together emergency relief funds for their employees. But we also have a vision that you could deliver an emergency fund to members or to any other group, right? So any group that exists that wants to give money into a shared pool and then make it available to individuals if they have an emergency could potentially benefit from our technology platform. And if you go to the next slide, like, I actually feel like I can leave it there. Like, there's a lot about how we thought about the technology that I think is not only critical to our delivering our service well, but is just part of this general conversation about how do you use technology to deliver services to really anyone, right? And is particularly to low-income community or around financial services. And for us, we can talk about this more in the discussion, because there's plenty to build on here. But it's a lot about treating people with dignity and making sure your processes really are easy for them to use. So I'll come back to some of these ideas in our discussion.
Absolutely. Thank you for that, Rachel. And I think it really points to the fact that you can't count on needs emerging between 8 a.m. and 6 p.m., right? Needs emerge on weekends, needs emerge after hours, and the ability to engage technology to allow for that kind of coverage and at least beginning a process of providing some support or even receiving that support through technology at all times is truly phenomenal. Let's jump in and continue the conversation. And Angelo, let's turn to you. Public service has been very active recently in upgrading your member-facing technology. Can you talk about how you worked with your board and leadership team to get them to view technology as an asset, right? Not as a cost, but as a critical part of your business model?
Again, all those digital projects were on the roadmap, right? But with the growing urgency in the pandemic, it was easier to discuss the crucial role technology was going to play in our strategy as a credit union. I'm grateful that the board shares my vision, and we're willing to invest in technology to better the service to our members. So with the board, we gave them the vision. We told them exactly what we wanted to do. They saw the benefit of having technology and having digital channels improvements, all our members, and they were willing to spend the money for it. With the leadership, or what we did is we created an excitement level with them. Every meeting that we have, we introduce a product, and we're trying to build an excitement. This is what's coming up. This is how it's going to do, and we let them have a stake to it, right? We wanted them to endorse it and be part of it, and coming up with ideas, coming up with names, how we're going to just introduce the product to our members. So we built a hype towards all the technology projects that we kept going, and we got their buy-in, and I couldn't be happier with the outcome.
Fantastic. Be very curious to hear others address that as well. And so maybe Kris will go to you and and talk about that. And then also talk a bit, and this question ultimately will pose to the entire group. Talk about understanding the LMI market and how you've been able to navigate your board, navigate and serve this market, and integrating those two things.
Sure. Well, I think Dora is probably the best example I can possibly think of as it relates to this. So, as I mentioned, we were looking at Dora as a project going into early 2020, and to be honest, when all these things started to tighten, the markets tightens, all of a sudden there's this question of financial uncertainty. I think maybe I would describe it as we're all looking on a defensive mode of like, okay, what do we need to do? Put more money into the allowance for loan losses? Do we need to toughen underwriting standards, or whatever the considerations were? And do we limit expenses? And as a management team, as a board, I'm really, really proud of the U.S. Alliance folks, because we all looked at each other and said, hey, no. If there was ever a time we need Dora, it's now. Like, absolutely. And so to instead of tightening and cutting, we doubled down. We put a bigger investment, a bigger priority. And I think that is really where some of the special things happen. And it's funny, as Dora was being built out, there was all kinds of things going on in the industry, as was talked about, where there was communities getting together to help folks that were particularly hit hard, or communities hit hard. And we kept scratching our heads saying, we wish we had Dora now. So we used some of the U.S. Alliance platforms to do some really interesting things in terms of delivering grants and money to folks that maybe needed it most and didn't have the financial institution access. But Dora was really the platform. So we learned some things in the U.S. Alliance technology that we then put into Dora as part of going through the needs in the pandemic process. On the other side of it, almost like the selfish bone, in doing Dora, we have been learning so much about technology, new technology, emerging technology, and trends, that we're pulling little ideas from Dora based on member feedback, based on meeting with business partners and related, and saying, hey, that's great for Dora, but maybe there's some broader interest in U.S. Alliance as a whole, or even some of our other partner credit unions. So there's this amazing symmetry that comes back and kind of cross-pollinates, not just within an individual credit union, but within the credit union industry. So I think it's amazing. And I think some of us as credit unions, sometimes we scratch our heads a little bit and we look at fintechs and think, how am I going to compete against Google, or how am I going to compete against Amazon? But once you start pulling back the curtain, no, we don't have that kind of scale. But we can do that technology. And sometimes, as you described, Marla, it's 2 or 3 people with a laptop and an idea that have this passion that makes it even better than the giant titans in the technology industry. So I think it's awesome. I see so much more opportunity out there for us as a credit union industry. And at US Alliance, we have a number of other things kind of cooking in the background in a similar platform. But I think technology is a really large part of that enabler.
Thank you for that. Rachel, what about you? What do you think people misunderstand or maybe get wrong? I know you have spent a lot of time studying LMI communities and have published a book that captured quite a bit of your learnings there. What stands out for you at this point over time?
God, so much. So, look, we just underestimate LMI people, period. Like, we just underestimate. And I'm sure that's less true of the people in this virtual room than people generally in the world. But it's really easy to forget that low and moderate income people are often the most financially savvy people in our country. Like, they are the ones who are the most resourceful about how to make every dollar work for them. They know the most about where they will pay fees and where they will not pay fees, and which services will get cut off if they don't pay them, and where, right? They just really tend to be incredibly sophisticated in managing a tight financial life. And so I think sometimes we don't know how to design for that sophistication. And part of it is just the fact that many of, we often don't have the lived experience that our customers have. So that's why I think like listening to your staff at a credit union is incredibly important, right? Because they really have that, like they often might have the same lived experience, or they just might be getting that firsthand feedback. So I think that's one thing. I think the other is that we underestimate the value of technology. Like we tend to assume that, oh, if somebody has a job that's not really sitting at a computer, maybe they might not be as great with moving things online. But in fact, Facebook is used by everyone. Every demographic is on Facebook globally. And it means maybe you need to design your tech for mobile access rather than desktop access. But it's not that people aren't happy to use technology. They are. And I think as with all things, you have to figure out how to balance when you use technology and when you use people, right? Like I'm pretty frustrated as a consumer at the extent to which the technology I interact with thinks that I can't access a person. It's very annoying. Like sometimes you need a person. And what credit unions have done beautifully is that they're not walking away from having people involved, right? You do need to be able, we used to talk about all the time at the Financial Health Network, where I worked for a long time, as the combination of high tech and high touch. Mm-hmm. And you have to figure out when you're using each, not, put all your eggs in one basket or the other.
Absolutely. Yeah, well said on much of that. And I think there is a host of ways that kind of manifests itself, especially around how savvy the population is, that the ability to be creative, to solve problems in ways that are working around all kinds of complexity and constraints is remarkable. It's off the charts. So I would really second a lot of what you said. Angelo, let's round out with you. What do you see in the LMI community and in populations that you've served and work with that you think is misunderstood and could often be changed?
Well, as being in Detroit and surrounding areas, we definitely have demographics fit the lower income membership. So as an organization, we do believe that we need to provide services to everybody. And we do the best we can to do, So, for example, we're trying to use CDFI grants, to provide lending opportunities for less stringent than would have been otherwise. And then we want to use our technology to make it easy for them to apply. We want to make it easy for them. And taking barriers away from them, just easy to apply online, be able to get decisioning, and be able to provide them with their money, as soon as possible. So timing and convenience is important to us. Another problem that we're encountering with our demographic was transportation barriers. We end up finding out a lot of our members didn't have cars, didn't have the means to go to a branch or using public transportation for that matter. So we went outside the box and we thought, how about if we create a system that it's a video banking? Everybody has a cell phone, right? They might not have a car, but a cell phone everybody has, or a computer, harnessing technology that way. So we brought the agent to them, so with the video banking, an agent talks to them, right? If they see the video, they see the picture, and they have a comfort level of being next to somebody. And it humanizes the whole experience, right? So and help them fill up an application. It's frustrating looking at some applications that they went nowhere because the member actually got confused on what do I do next? What I'm supposed to provide here. So seeing the same application together, the agent and the member, makes it a more seamless transaction. They can be educational, it can be transactional as well.
Absolutely. I think that's right. And it really echoes back to what you were talking about on the virtual agent side, that there is an interaction model here that has vast opportunity to make technology incredibly efficient and being able to accomplish a lot of what you just described.
And I agree with Rachel when she said that, what you don't want to overburden, everybody with technology, only use the stuff that they need to have, right? Be able to give them access to a real live person. We're not taking the live person away. We're just enhancing the offering. And if they do have a problem, the agent's right there. I mean, the live person is right there to take over. That can be through the telephone, through a video, through a chat. We're trying to provide all channels that the member will be able to feel comfortable to communicate with us.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
So let me ask one more of all of you before we jump into questions from the audience. And this one is always one of my favorites, to give a little bit of an opportunity to share what you're seeing in the market. So without recommending your own product, be very curious to know, based on what you're seeing out there, what you understand is solving problems, if you could advise other community development credit unions what product or service that they should consider spending their next tech dollar on and why. So why don't we start with you, Kris? What is top of mind for you as you look around in the market and think about what adds to your platform at this point?
Well, I think there's kind of almost two different answers to this. I mean, at its most basic level, I mean, I think we all have different pain points as financial institutions, and maybe we've already made an investment. I think Angelo mentioned something about like a new loan origination type process, and the idea that today there's all kinds of new and evolving and non-traditional approaches to a lot of products, services, and problems. And so if we continue on with the example of, let's say, a loan origination system, there's a lot of non-traditional modeling going on, whether it's using artificial intelligence or based on relationship with a credit union, and the idea of approving a loan or approving a loan with a better rate or approving a loan with a better term, but using this enhanced information that doesn't necessarily follow the traditional model, and so the idea of seeing what's out there with fintechs and see what some of the things that they're doing, see some of the solutions that they're doing. Ironically, fintechs have multiple partners as well. So it's not very often that you're out there and you're looking at a fintech and it's just one solution. A lot of times it's half a dozen to a dozen solutions that are kind of woven together with a really nice, beautiful front end. And I think for us as an industry, we need to really look at things that way as well. I think a lot of us, kind of fall into these legacy traps of whether we're Fiserv or FAS or Scimitar or correlations. It doesn't really matter, but we kind of like go with the standard solution. And I think as an industry, we really need to like look at what's really best for our members. And the answer probably is a little bit of all of those solutions and others that we have never heard of that might be just emerging today. So for me, I guess to kind of pull it all around, it is really just taking a step back and not just looking at our traditional partners for technology, but look at what our kids are using, what our friends are using, what our kids' friends are using, and just say, okay, is that something that we can do? And I think in more times than not, if it's technology, the answer is yes, but we might have to talk to some different people than we talked to in the past. So that makes sense?
That makes sense. It does. And I think that's really well integrated view of how all the pieces fit together. Rachel, let's turn to you. What are you seeing that makes you really excited and that you think if you were on the margin making an investment decision in this space on technology, where would you allocate that dollar?
Yeah, I even though I knew you were going to ask this in advance, I felt like this is a tough one because it's less that I see like some specific solution that everyone here should just go buy and implement, and more that I think what this makes me think about is that we should spend on design. Like I feel like I think that for a few reasons. One, it's really easy to think if the functionality is there, that's enough. And I think that's underserving a population that gets ignored from a user experience perspective. Like Like, I love that you were talking about how can you make the experience delight. Like our job, I think it's really easy with, particularly when serving LMI populations, to get very utilitarian about it, because the goal is to be cheap, and it should be cheap, but not cheap, right? Like it should be cost effective, but still feel really good to use. And so to me, that really means design. And we at Canary, we recently have been working with designer to redo our user experience. And I've been in this space for a long time, and I've been talking about behavioral economics and how you use design to nudge people into the right decisions for them for as long as, like, I've been reading that stuff and then parroting it back as long as anybody's been writing it. And I'm still finding that I am amazed at the extent to which somebody coming into our user experience and looking at it and saying, if you change the colors this way and you change the lines that way and you ask the questions in this order, then you've just diminished the word our designer's using is, you've diminished the cognitive load of your user. And for me, that idea was so compelling because I want to diminish the cognitive load of our users. Like people's cognitive load, especially in the last year and a half, that's like overflowing, man. Right? Like you just, we're all doing what we can to like manage living through a very challenging time for the world and keep our own lives going. And design, when used well, makes people's brains calmer, makes it easier for them to make the decisions that are hard for them. So I would say, as you're thinking about your technology and you're, figuring out how to implement new things, don't just think design is about making stuff be pretty. That just undersells it. Design is about making the people you serve feel valued and seen and making their lives and their mental states calmer.
Thank you. Yeah, agreed wholeheartedly. Angelo, why don't you round us out? What are you seeing out there that you are considering for yourself or would recommend to others that you think is potential next game-changing opportunity from the tech side?
Yeah, thinking of starting another project in technology right now, with just mentioned Kris. I have 5 projects going right now with the intelligent assistant, the video banking, all that is taking redesigning the whole call center. But there's a ton of technology out there, but is it fit for everybody, right? Just we starting with get to know our members, right? Just truly understand what our members are and what they want and how we can service them. We're a small credit union. We don't have the deep pockets to spend money and building new things. So more likely we're looking for good partners, good relationships, just building a relationship. We had a vision. We had a vision with technology that the board directed and say, this is what we'd like to do. So instead of me going out and looking what's readily available and just buy it and build it and hopefully they'll come, I said, what? I went to my core and say, this is what my goal is. This is what my vision is. Are you willing to work with me? Are you willing to, if I invest money to build it for me? And I was surprised. I mean, they say, absolutely, we'd love to build something like that. It fits along with our technology goals as well. And it was a better solution for us. Getting something else that's already been pre-built, it might have all the tools and whistles, but it wasn't mine. I wanted something that it would fit our needs. And I'm grateful that, Visify was there, to support us.
Agreed. I think that resonates. And Rachel rightly pointed out, this one was a hard one. And I'll add one perspective on this one. I gave this question some thought as well. And one of the things I think has been already implemented in many ways behind the scenes and underlying infrastructure is artificial intelligence. Artificial intelligence for the organizations themselves to be ever more prepared and serve ever more efficiently the needs of the customer. I think in making that marginal allocation, I think there's a really interesting opportunity to put artificial intelligence on the side of the customer, right? And apply it in ways that will allow anticipation of a customer's need, design, and then make recommendations in with a robust and integrated understanding of the kinds of issues or challenges that customer might face. and put them in a position to be successful and stay within your organization, leveraging the products that you have, but do that proactively. And I think there's real promise in that, because in many respects, we are all interacting with artificial intelligence and making decisions with artificial intelligence on one side of the equation. But as individuals, we don't really have artificial intelligence on our own side. And I think there's an opportunity to kind of add some balance in that sense. And so thinking about ways to make the recommendation engine work on the customer's behalf, I think is a really compelling and interesting opportunity. So I'll add that to the slate. I would allocate that marginal dollar toward artificial intelligence. So let's turn now to a couple of questions that have come in through the audience, and we'll prompt the audience again. Please do feel free to chime in and provide any questions that may have come up for you as you've been listening in here. In particular, there are a number of questions for you, Kris, about Dora, and there's a lot of excitement about the Dora product that you announced. Can you talk in a little bit more detail about how members of the audience, credit unions can leverage Dora? Is the intent behind it that this will be available to let other credit unions offer this product to their membership? How does that work? What is the go-to-market strategy? And then how's the experience?
Sure, a great question. So, well, the go-to-market strategy at its most basic level is, we had talked about partnering with a large number of credit unions, and I think there's a tremendous amount of industry interest still out there. However, the idea of even Dora from the most basic level, we didn't approach the industry until it was done. And so if you think about that, that's kind of counter to at least most places, most industry, where there's an idea and then there's partners get together and then it gets funded and then it gets built. In this particular case, US Lions just built it. And so the idea of the pandemic as an opportunity to kind of leap forward. And then once it was built, to go out and seek partners. So it's a little bit upside down, at least from the traditional model. So that was, kind of the initial start. In terms of like go to market, there's really two approaches, and it's kind of the traditional marketing, which you're seeing all the neo banks or neo organizations out there today. But I think another important distinguishing quality is the partnership side of things. So the traditional credit union model, and that is with regional organizations, neighborhood organizations, national partners, government authorities, and related, to seek partnerships. And we've seen an amazing amount of interest in that regard already. So in our case, we just happened to be talking to the city of Boston, and this was a few months back, and they said, hey, no, we want to use this. We want to use it as a partner tool for our different neighborhoods and related. So, that was before we were even done. And so the idea of like reaching out to a wide variety of other cities and towns and related, and say, okay, this is a true, professional, outstanding, cooperative neo credit union that you can use to partnership with all your different programs in financial wellness. So it really is a combination of approaches. And the idea, to go a step further, as far as an industry solution, we're still architecting it, but the idea that what has been really so successful in the neobank space is the kind of single-threaded approach, whether it's a checking account, whether it's an auto loan, but they have a typical approach where they're just looking at one product or one service. You don't typically have a member that has a credit card, a checking account, a personal loan, whatever. It is typically just one, maybe two. And so our approach with Dora is to keep that kind of pure focus, and the idea of potentially handing off to credit unions that make the most sense, whether that's based on geography, whether that's based on specialty. You mentioned artificial intelligence as well, which I think is a tremendous example. And so the idea of using artificial intelligence and analyzing the member data and being able to anticipate that this member, based on current cash flow, might need a short-term loan, and what organization, what credit union might be best suited to solve that need. So there's a ton in the pipeline, and We have a really outstanding board. I mentioned already Inclusiv being an advisory role of prioritizing some of that stuff that's already in the pipeline and kind of building that again to best suit our industry.
Fantastic. Yeah, thank you. It's an incredibly exciting opportunity and approach. And you could sense the feedback in real time on that announcement when you made it at the beginning of the conversation here. So thank you for that.
That's great to hear.
Yeah. Let's finish with one more question from the audience. I'll pose this to each of you, and we will have, this will be our last one. The question to the panel is, how do you manage the challenge of training the existing employees to these changes, right? As you're implementing technology, the pace of technology continues to drive change at a rapid clip in the operations arena. Would love the thinking and some of the experiences you've had on getting your employees to come up the curve in some ways as quickly as the technology has been changing and trying to enable them to keep up. Rachel, why don't we start with you?
It's really hard to keep up, right? Like the pace of change is huge. And I think my best advice is probably don't let the fact that you will not be able to keep up stop you from doing stuff. Right, because it's just going to continue to change, and so you have to make the choices that are available to you now, and then know that you're going to have to keep investing over time. And I see that even myself in running a new business, right? Technology investment is not we do it this year and then we're done. It's an annual, every year. What is our budget and what is our biggest priority? And in terms of keeping up, then I think it's really about identifying what is the biggest pain point you're trying to solve for your membership this year, and what are your options to solve that pain point, right? So, but yeah, it's really hard because the world is just changing so fast.
It really is. I really like that answer. I think it's really important to point out, just because it's a startup and may have new technology for the purposes of starting a new company, that does not mean that this is a problem that startups don't have, right? This is not just a legacy incumbent kind of challenge. This is across the board. Angelo, what about you? Give me your thinking on how your employees and your team responds to technology as it continues to change.
This definitely was a challenge for us as well. We ended up finding out that a lot of our employees weren't even using our products, and it was difficult for me to say, how can you sell, a mobile banking or online banking where you're not even using it? So we went in a different approach. We took a step backwards and we started a whole year introducing our products, to a higher level, to a lower, understanding what the product is, what it does, and what the benefits is for the member, and for the credit union. So they have a full understanding what each product do for both of us. And then as far as new technologies coming in, we wanted them to have a say on it. So we made them part of it. Certain things we created different competition between branches, or naming the product, or coming with the voice of it, or different things that they felt engaged, and created some kind of excitement within our organization about, oh, Mia is coming in. Mia, by the way, is our artificial intelligence agent that's coming up, and different things like that they felt, oh my God, I can't wait for this thing, to come up. And they felt that it was theirs, other than, that's a product that we have, and that's it. So end up learning about our products more, as well.
Exactly. Yeah, I think that's the sort of eat your own cooking version of the answer here, and that will help you understand how the technology is working and what you might be able to do to address it and keep up with it. Kris, let's give you the last word in answering this question, and would love to understand a bit about how you're come out of the IBM universe, and just understand a bit about how that keeping up with change has manifested in your organization.
For us, I've been really fortunate that we're as an organization, we've been pretty successful to always kind of look to technology to advance the organization. That said, it's tough. I think the idea that there's a bunch of different ideas that are really great, I think Angelo kind of mentioned one. I think like personalizing technology, giving it a name, giving it like a little bit of a culture or personality. So whether it's a digital assistant, in the past we've even named servers. So like you have a server, and the idea of that, one of my other credit unions was called Big Al, and so the idea that Big Al might be having problems today or what have you. So I think humanizing thing is really important. I think weaving playtime into the environment, to the culture, is another huge thing. We've done in the past where we've given away technology if we reached a certain goal, and allowing employees to pick which technology solution they wanted to have for their own home or family, and that's kind of part of our rewards process. I think also like literally playing. We've had little robots in the office, and the idea that another office can walk the robot around and get a visual of what's going on in the other office. So again, it's humanizing elements, and let employees take the robot home to play with it. So I think it's all these little things. I don't think any one of them really does it, but by building a culture where technology is just part of it, it's amazing to see, at least on a daily basis, where employees are making recommendations, suggestions, whether about new technology or whether about enhancements to features and functions in our products. And I would say point blank, some of the most valuable input that we've received, much like Angelo mentioned, is from our own employees using technology and giving feedback, how to make things easier. So I do think, bottom line is trying to incorporate technology in our DNA, because, let's face it, this is the way our world is going, but humanizing it.
It sure is. And I really like that as a last note here, that the idea of making technology fun, right? I hear a lot of fun woven into the way you're talking about bringing robots in and enabling people to share in the technology in their homes. That is a critical component as well to addressing the issues of intimidation or people feeling like that that is not for them. So thank you for sharing that, Kris, as well.
My pleasure.
So I see Kathy has rejoined us here, which is the signal that it is time for us to come to a close here. So let me thank all of the panelists for a fantastic conversation here, and thank Inclusiv for including me and allowing all of us to join in this event of today. Kathy, let me turn to you for a wrap up and final words here. Thank you all.
Thank you. Thank you, Marla, and all the panelists. You have done a fabulous job. I feel like, at Inclusiv, we've been so fortunate that we have been able to be learning alongside our members for, the past many years. And so, learning alongside public service, and Visify for the past several years around some of these digital solutions, and having all these really fantastic solutions sort of coming to life. Our ability to learn alongside US Alliance in the evolution of the DORA product. And Kris is very generous in saying that we're an advisor. We hope to advise, but we learn so much just as they have been building out that solution. And as always with Rachel, and in your new endeavor with Canary, we're always learning so much from the way that you approach the work, with a real focus on people using it, and the human-centered design approach, which is something that we feel very strongly about, particularly when it comes to designing solutions for communities that have historically been excluded, involving them in that process and engaging them in all of that is really just so fabulous. So I feel like, while I thought I knew a lot, about what all of you were going to say coming into this, I've learned a tremendous amount. And let me just say, let's give a big shout out to our fabulous moderator, Marla Blow. You did a terrific job of really getting into some really great pieces. So thank you all. We are so really so happy to have had this conversation. I now have the job of reminding everybody before you leave that we have networking sessions coming up. Stick around. We have some fabulous networking sessions. People can choose. You can go through the portal and you can choose your session. You can join more than one, and you can feel free to sort of drop in and out or find the one that makes sense for you and stick with it. The 4 networking sessions that are about to come up starting at 5:30, I believe, are Juntos Avanzamos, Empowering Hispanic Consumers. The next one is Empowering Black Consumers Through Credit Unions, and that's through the Inclusive Black Communities work. The third is Clean Energy Lending, a growing trend in credit unions. And the fourth is Building Toward Homeownership. And now, before we close out of this session, we do have a video by NeighborWorks America CEO Marietta Rodriguez to talk a little bit about some of the work that we've been cooking up around making connections and partnerships and collaboration between credit unions and NeighborWorks organizations. So I'm gonna kick it over to the video, and then after you've seen the video, take a little break, get a cocktail, get a tea, get some snacks, and come back to the networking sessions. They're gonna be really great starting at 5:30. Thanks.
Hello, I'm Marietta Rodriguez, President and CEO of NeighborWorks America, a congressionally chartered nonprofit dedicated to creating opportunities in communities across the country. We support a network of nearly 250 local and regional nonprofit housing and community development organizations, which provide on-the-ground support to families and communities in every state, the District of Columbia, and Puerto Rico. I'm really excited about the partnership between NeighborWorks America and Inclusiv. I believe it will increase opportunities for families to pursue homeownership and build generational wealth. NeighborWorks and Inclusiv both share common goals of providing affordable housing opportunities to families and leveraging resources to expand our reach. So it makes perfect sense to partner. NeighborWorks has the infrastructure to reach thousands of families and support them through homeownership and counseling and other services. And Inclusiv's network of credit unions can provide the financing to make the dreams of homeownership a reality. I'm so pleased that the NeighborWorks Florida Collaborative is taking the lead in piloting this partnership with Inclusiv's Florida-based member credit unions. I'm both appreciative and grateful to Kathy Mann, President and CEO of Inclusiv, and her team at Inclusiv for making this partnership possible. Thank you.